Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this webinar today. This webinar is about teenage pregnancy, looking beyond the burden. We have seen a surge of teenage pregnancies in Kenya in recent times, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. And my name is Cynthia Gishiri. I'm the host for this webinar. Also the reporter who filed the story that just aired on YouTube yesterday. And so today with me is a panel of three people who have been working with teenagers, both in Nakuru County and in other parts of the country. So I'm going to give them like 5 minutes so that each one of them can be able to introduce themselves. So we have Irene Kerubo, who is a counseling psychologist. She works with the consortium, Counseling and Psychologist Consortium. And we also have Walter Mwania, who is a programs manager at Midrift Urinet or Midrift Human Rights Network. We also have Mrs. Margaret Mushendu, who runs the Philadelphia Church Women Crisis Center. So welcome, everybody. Probably we can start with Irene. Introduce yourself to us. Tell us what you do briefly. Please unmute your microphone.
Hello.
Hello, you can go ahead. Yeah, please go ahead.
Right, my name is Irene Kerubo. My name is Irene Kerubo, and I'm a counseling psychologist working with an organization called Counseling Psychologist Consortium. I am also an ambassador with Crisis Pregnancy Ministry, which I started practicing as from the year 2016 till now. And I'm also a mother of a teen. Yes, that's all.
Thank you very much, Irene. Now let's go to Margaret.
Good evening. My name is Margaret Mushendu, and I'm the manager of Philadelphia Women in Crisis Center, where we rescue women and girls who have undergone any form of sexual and gender-based violence from different counties. And our target are young mothers, actually teen moms. I'm excited to be part of this discussion.
Oh, thank you very much. Over to you, Walter.
Hello, good evening. My name is Walter Mwania, Programs Manager with Midrift Human Rights Network. I'm a human rights defender, and we are implementing programs on safety and security. We also have programs which are focusing on prevention of urban violence, and also programs around rehabilitation of victims of gender-based violence. So we have several programs that we are implementing around the topic that we are discussing today.
Okay, thank you very much. We are still waiting on Honorable Njuguna Mwaura, who is the MCA for Elbagon Ward in Nakuru County. He is the one who actually tried to draft a bill on this that would have tackled this issue and table it to the Nakuru County Assembly. And we are hoping that he'll be able to join us so that he can be able to tell us about the bill and what progress he has made so far. But just to look at the numbers, the latest statistics from the Global Childhood Kenya has ranked actually Kenya as the third highest teen pregnancy rates with 82 births per 100 births. So, and according to the United Nations Population Fund report, Kenya has recorded over 378,397 adolescent and teenage pregnancies for girls aged between 10 to 19. That was between July 2016 and June 2017. That's in a span of 1 year. And now fast forward to 2020, when now we had the COVID-19 pandemic. That is when this issue actually kind of blew up. And so my first question would go to Irene, who has been working with teenagers and with the Crisis Pregnancy Organization. What are the trends that we see in the urban and rural neighborhoods in teenage pregnancies? Irene, are you there? Please unmute your microphone.
Yes, thank you, Cynthia. As you've said, last year, that is when COVID-19 came, so many young girls were found in this crisis pregnancy. And I can remember from the month of March to this month around March again, I had a lot of calls from these girls and also their parents. So the trend as compared to the year 2019 and the year 2020, crisis pregnancy and teen pregnancy has been on the high rise. I'm able to concur with you that it has been so high. And there are reasons as to why it has been so high. It's because some of the girls that were supposed to be in school were at home. And most of the time they could be idle. And when they are idle, they could just engage in things that are negative. So it caused most of the young girls to get pregnant and they were very active in their sexual life. Thank you.
Sorry, is there a difference in trend between girls from rural areas and girls from urban centers? Maybe Walter, you can help us understand that.
I looked at the documentary that you did, and incidentally, it showed that the statistics in Nakuru town, east and west sub-counties, which are urban areas, the numbers are significantly low. Joro sub-county was leading with the highest number of teenage pregnancies, and I think a conversation was the persons who were interviewed. They were trying to try to understand why why that difference in numbers. And I think what was coming out is that persons within urban areas are more enlightened. They are able to protect themselves and all that. But again, when you look at the rural setups, because when you look at the issues of teenage pregnancies, when you look the documentary that you did, you find that many of the people who defiled those girls were persons who they are relatives, and in many of those instances there was no consent among those girls. So that is and again also practically from my experience, also I've seen at a time when I was in school, many teachers being involved in the defilement of young girls. So we are looking at a situation whereby there is no consent, and that is to mean then in the rural areas, the communities and people are reserved. Maybe girls are not able to speak out more compared to urban areas whereby they are more exposed to many of these things. So I think that's what I would say. On this.
Mm-hmm. And maybe according to you, what do you think are the drivers of teenage pregnancies in the country, not just in Nakuru County, but in the country?
What I would say is that we have a very weak criminal justice system, in the sense that now that we have, for instance, all these girls who are teenage mothers, the question is, how many people have been prosecuted? How many of these cases or many of these cases were girls impregnated by persons below the age of 18? And even if it is below the age of 18, how do we address that? But you find there are And we had the case of Kuresoi South, whereby the house of a chief was burned down because the chief was trying to address issues of teenage pregnancies, and the perpetrators went out to attack the chief, and we saw the response of the government. So we are looking at a situation whereby we don't want to talk about some of these issues, but the big question is, who defiled these teenage girls? What action has been taken by government to prosecute them? Then number two is lack of awareness on what constitutes sexual harassment. Many young girls who don't know what constitutes sexual harassment and how to report, how to seek redress. So, and research has shown that a response to any form of threat, one will flee, or will freeze, or will fight. So you find that in many instances, girls are subjected to an issue they are not comfortable with, and you begin asking yourself, you begin asking them, why did you not run? Why did you not fight? But one of the response mechanisms to a threat is freeze. And so we really need to go beyond the statistics, and maybe African censored with the next front should be questioning the government, the Minister of Education, and the criminal justice system. How many of these persons have been prosecuted? Because for as long as we don't have prosecutions of these persons, then we continue talking about statistics year in, year out.
Okay, thank you very much, Walter. That issue of prosecution and people being brought to book, I'll probably have to talk to Margaret, because now that she runs a rescue center, I would like to know, maybe out of the girls they have been able to rescue probably this year, if there's anyone who has been able to find justice. But before that, there's also the issue of lack of parental guidance as one of the drivers of teenage pregnancies in the country. And I remember when growing up, when we were in school, we used to have several people coming to talk to us, even providers of these products that we use, like sanitary towels. They would tour schools, teachers would talk to us about our menses and what to do, how to, keeping away from, sex until the right age. So why is it that in today's society, we are not seeing these things? Why is it that today we're actually having parents who are shocked that actually my child has become sexually active, or my child has been defiled? What's going on? Margaret, can you please shed some light on that?
Thank you, Cynthia. I think I'll start with prosecution. And personally, I would say at our shelter, we are referred these cases by the judiciary, the police, the chief, sometimes the community. However, I would say there is a very slow chain of custody in terms of reporting, referral, and response. So basically, I would say sometimes it gets lost along the way. So very few cases to be prosecuted, and therefore the victims get justice. And probably I'd say also this is due to some areas we have a lot of interference by the culture. For instance, if someone has been defiled, and this case is incest, the perpetrator is a family member, there is a lot of kangaroo courts that usually take place, such that the girl or the family, they end up either, they end up interfering with the case such that the victim never gets justice. So basically, I would say for the children, for the girls who are below 18 years, sometimes it's very hard. It's a 22 for them to get justice, especially in issues, when it comes to issues of incest. The other thing is, apart from the chain of custody, I would like to comment on what you asked about trends, what Walter was commenting about, that sometimes there is no clear data because we do not have aggregated data that would tell probably what is happening in Nakuru East, Nakuru West, Njoro, or Kuresoi. Because we find that the police give their data, The hospital have their data, we the shelters have our data. So sometimes it's very hard to actually know exactly what is happening when it comes to these cases of sexual and gender-based violence. On parenting, why nowadays we do not have those programs where we used to see many people go offer mentorship in schools, and parents would avail time such that they know when their daughters have been defiled. Apparently recently, sometimes it's even hard for a parent to realize a change of behavior with the children and notice that this child has been defiled so that they can be able to preserve evidence. Why this is happening is because so many parents are too busy. Very busy looking for fees, looking for food to put on the table, and they have forgotten their parental responsibility. Also, there is a lot of trust, especially with the significant other, those close family members. There has been a lot of trust such that parents are trusting their uncles with their children because they are busy looking for money and school fees and all that. They're also trusting shamba boys to go and collect their children from school. So there's a lot of trust with the parents because they're busy. And now these significant others stand against these children and they defile or rape them. What I would appeal is we should enhance awareness to these children. Also, I would say the society is shying away from calling a spade and open these discussions to discuss them with our children. I don't know whether we are shy, I don't know what is happening, but we are not telling the children as it is. So you find that before they realize that they're being defiled, it started probably with a touch, but these children just thought it's a touch, so what? So I would say parents should get closer to their children, a responsibility they have probably abandoned or given it to someone else who is taking advantage and defiling their children. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Margaret. Those are very, very nice points there. But then again, there's also an issue of cross-generational dating that also came across in the story. You find that there's a 12-year, a 13-year-old who's actually in a relationship with an over 20-something-year-old man, and they end up having consensual sex, and this girl gets pregnant and she becomes a mom. Irene Kerubo, as someone who has worked with girls, especially from the slum areas, what can you say about this issue?
Thank you. I'll begin by saying that it is happening a lot. And if you look back at history, you find that most of these parents, as we've talked about parenting, there's no supervision from home. So these girls will just be pushed into such kind of an incident simply because there's no one who's guarding them. There's no one who's taking care of them. So it happens so much, more especially when homes are just left with no one. The children are just left alone. Parents are so busy, as it was said by Margaret. So these children have no one to guide them, have no one to talk to them. This is how men just prey on them. Because when they don't have some things, for example, these young girls could even not be having things like sanitary towels. So these old men or these especially men who are having little money will be able to lure them into such kind of situations. For instance, if a girl is lacking something, even food, sometimes parents are so busy, they go out there, they look for these manual jobs, they've not left food at home, these children are so hungry. So if somebody comes and just lures them with even 50 bob that they can go and buy something, they will just take the money. And because their brains have not yet matured, then they think it is just okay to get that money. And at the end of it all, now these people will be, the young girls will be lured into having sex without their consent because they do not know. So they just feel, oh, this person has done something good for me. He has given me 50 shillings. So this one will help me buy even something to eat or even for my sanitary towel. So at the end of the day, these young girls are just, they're not able to make wise decisions. Number two, I'm realizing that they don't have information. Nobody's telling them about their sexuality. Nobody's telling them at puberty, this is what is supposed, This is how your body changes. So at the end of the day, they are told by other peers. So all this, it contributes to the men having to prey on them because they don't have this information that is on their hands. And together with that, you also find there's a lot of social media. This pornography kind of stuff that is going around a lot among the peer is also making them want to know what is all about this. So all this is contributing to men money. That is what I can say.
Okay, thank you very much, Irene. Also, you've mentioned social media. That was actually my next question. I was just about to ask, what is social media one of
maybe Cynthia, before you go to the next session on social media, I would want to say you talked about a relationship between a 12-year-old and 21.
Yeah.
In law, there is no consent in that because this is still a minor. So that awareness needs to be created. And as Margaret was saying, there are some sessions we have gone to school with gender officers in police stations and enlightened pupils, students on all this and on the Sexual Offences Act and the consequences of involving themselves in this. So I would want to say, to clarify, that there is no consent between a 12 and 18 and a man above 19. So that should be very clear unless the law is changed. But I think on the same, we need to create a lot of awareness. There also research has shown that parenting has not played its critical role. But again, we need to go beyond the parenting to a situation whereby, as Irene was sharing, the content that is displayed in the media, mainstream and social media platforms. And I think Ezekiel Muto has been a commendable job in that, because when you expose people to some of this content, they would want to experiment to practice what they are saying.
Well, thank you very much. I'm reading some comments here on YouTube, and is Juliana Karanga says some cultures don't value women. I agree with the panelists that the kangaroo courts handle such cases, and the girl is left to suffer. And I can remember while I was actually filing the story, when I visited some parts in Kuresoi, I discovered that actually another big challenge when schools were reopened during the COVID season is that most of the girls, especially high school girls, were actually got married during the COVID-19 season. And so the challenge becomes now trying to get these children back to school to be able to study. And now this is where the kangaroo courts are actually coming in to interfere with this process. Now, I think these are some of the areas within the law that you have. On one hand, you have the law that says you cannot have sex with a child, someone below 18 years. And then another side also, you find that these children or these families are actually consenting to these things, and it kind of becomes a challenge to tackle these issues. I don't know if you have something to say about that, Walter.
Yes, we have those challenges, and I think Margaret mentioned about that issues around kangaroo courts, and I would just want to insist and say that the reason why we are having all this conversation and all these numbers is because the pupils, the students lack information on what constitutes defilement and sexual harassment. And number two, if that occurs, if they are defiled, how do they preserve that evidence? So all that process. So I would still say that it is actually the government which is failing the young people, because children need protection, and it is the role of the government to protect them. So when we say that in a village we have 20 girls who are teenage mothers. The big question is who defiled them and what action has been taken. And if they have children, can DNA be done, even if it is 10, 20 years down the line? And when prosecution begins to happen for these people, it will send a very strong, clear message in those families, in those neighborhoods. Watakuwa wanaona msichana akiwa na uniform anakimbia. But again, I also want to mention that it is not just about the girls who are being defiled and all that. It is also happening even to the boys also, by ourselves, by relatives and all that. So again, we need a balance around it.
Wow. Okay. Thank you very much. Now, my next question is, what policies are home counties, are counties actually trying to come up with to be able to combat this issue? Because this issue is not just in Nakuru. We saw Machakos County the other day. We have been seeing Narok every year when we are having national exams. We see actually girls doing their exams in maternity wards. So what are interventions are actually being put across to tackle this issue? I should start with Margaret. She's been quiet.
Thank you, Cynthia. Before I delve into the policies that have been put in place, policies that should be put in place, allow me to comment on the aspect of social media. And I would say social media is greatly contributing also to the aspect of teenage pregnancy and teenage sex. There has been normalized discussions around mpango wa kando, where people make it appear like it's a very good thing, having sex kiholela holela, and this is contributing to the behavior of our children greatly. Also, I would say in most instances, you find that due to parenting, why young girls, teenage girls are engaging in sex with men of older ages and they are preferring it, I would also say it is because most of them are seeking attention and approval. At teenage, most of these young girls, they want to feel appreciated and they want attention. But we parents are not there to accord them this attention and to give them some sort of approval, and therefore they are seeking it from a person who is the age of their father, because their father is not there to offer this. So I would say also that is a contributing factor. Over to the policies that are in place. We have quite a number of policies that are in place. We have the Children's Act of 2011. We have there are quite a number, actually I'm forgetting some, but we have the, is it the GBV policy? We have a policy around that area. But then I would say, policies are there, actually quite a number, that's why I'm forgetting. But there are so many, yet when now it comes to the ground, the actualization, the implementation of this policy, there's a huge gap. Because we who work in the NGO world, the legislatures, we are aware of these policies. But what about the common mwananchi? And that is why we're talking about consent. Where else the law and the legal frameworks are very clear that a child cannot consent to having sex. They don't have any consent. Mm-hmm. And therefore, the families of these children should also be aware that they cannot consent on behalf of these children. Simply because they have been impregnated, they cannot go and form a kangaroo court and come up with a solution. They change a goat and the thing is over. But now this information is not out there. That is why they still believe that their cultures can prevail against laws and policies that have been put in place.
Okay.
The other thing is about shelters. Until recently, where we have seen a lot of shelters coming up, and of course the reason as to why they are coming up is because they have been a ban on registration of CCIs, children and charitable institutions, and therefore people are running to open shelters, sorry to say. But until recently, we have had very few shelters. Currently in Nakuru, we have 9 shelters. Some are shelters, but some are safe houses. There is a difference between shelters and safe houses. Safe houses is where I turn my house into accommodating girls who probably have undergone any form of sexual and gender-based violence. But we have shelters which are known and they can get any girl from the whole country and they are well registered. In Nakuru, we have 9 shelters. Out of these 9, we do not have a government shelter. And allow me to say, Cynthia, I'm a member of Nakuru GBV cluster, Nakuru East, Nakuru West, and the entire county. We have been lobbying for having a government shelter. I don't know since when. Now there's a promise that we're going to have a shelter. Last time it was Gilgil. I don't know whether it is Njoro, but I would say this aspect needs to be fast-tracked. Okay. Because most of these shelters are struggling with finances. We do not have finances. We have limited capacities, and therefore we want to see a shelter that is run, managed, and operated by our dear government so that we can see progress in aspects of sexual and gender-based violence. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Margaret. You've mentioned shelter, and I've seen Mheshimiwa Njuguna Mwaura, the MCA for Elbagon, is here, and he can probably talk to us and tell us, as part of the Nakuru County government, the legislative arm of the government, why is there not a single shelter, government shelter in Nakuru? Whose job is that? Is it the counties or is it the central governments?
Government policies, and also issues of gender-based violence, and as per se, it's neither here in the county nor at the national government, but we would prefer it to be at the national government, because that's where we usually have many shelter. That is the rescue centers, the probation departments, the boarding for those people who have been rescued, and also the issues to do with the prosecution witness. That's where that's where we majorly need to invest and to have such kind of we have in our budget. Are you getting me?
We are losing you. We keep losing you. I think maybe there's a problem with your connection.
My connections has some issues.
Yeah, but now we can hear you.
Yeah, currently the county government of Nakuru have invested in the issues of gender-based violence rescue center in Joro. We are going to have one. As you know that the county is a new thing. We are just trying to come up with the structures, and I believe very soon it will be going to be operationalized and is going to serve its purpose. But however, I also want to tell the non-governmental organizations and also the members of the public, they have the power to decide what they want during the public participation, whereby we have the CIDP, and also we have other infrastructural or days whereby the members of the public can be able to engage the county government and decide what they want the county to develop for them or for that area. And therefore, it's the responsibility of the non-governmental organizations also to educate the members of the public, because much of the time when we engage the members of the public, they usually believe that we are doing politics, and they've taken it to be.
Maybe Mheshimiwa, you can turn off your video so that, yeah, I think that can help.
Okay. Now, what I'm saying is that what we need to do and what the members of the non-governmental organization ought to do the members of the public to investing or the county investing in such kind of infrastructure or structures that are supposed to rescue our ladies and also our boys to some extent. Therefore, I wish to say that it's a high time that all the interdepartmental or all the organizations to come together so that we can be able to serve that purpose.
Okay. Speaking of policies and interventions, Honorable Njuguna, there's a time you came up with a bill in the year 2019. I think I have a copy of the bill. We called it Nakuru County Maternal, Newborn and Child Health Bill of 2019. And you went through some sort of opposition while tabling this bill to the Nakuru County Assembly. Maybe you can tell us who were some of the opponents to what were you actually proposing in this bill, and who are some of the opponents of these proposals that you are making?
Okay, thank you. Allow me first of all to highlight the content of that bill. The bill was majorly highlighting on the issues of the teenage pregnancies and also unwanted pregnancies, majorly unwanted pregnancies. And majorly what we were saying, we were talking about the way we can be able to educate our children's, the way we can be able to provide the prevention mechanisms, such as preventing, or such as actually giving our children that is not really the children, but those people who have reached that level of the sexual active age, providing them with the issues like condoms and pregnancies. It also entailed the issues to do with menstrual life. That is the menstrual life, issuing them with the menstrual gadgets, and at the school, and each and every school was supposed to have. We were trying to educate and conducting the public barazas and public participation. The church was the hindrance. In fact, the church came out actually strongly to oppose our bill. And I don't know why. And we need to bring the church on board, and the church need to understand the kind of the society that we are reading and the kind of the world that we are living today. The church is so much into the that not all people who subscribe need to understand the kind of the society that they are living on, and the kind of the people we are living together with. Therefore, the church was the major hindrance, and they opposed our bill strongly, such that even they influenced the members of the county assembly.
Okay, maybe can I ask why in this is it of the bill there was a proposal for access to contraceptives for a child?
That it was not good for us to expose the children into the we say that they were to take those contraceptives under the prescription of the doctors, and also the children were supposed to have, first of all, to be taught.
Okay, we seem to be losing the MCA. Probably, Irene, can you tell us what are some of, maybe for someone who actually is knowledgeable about these issues of the church, what do you think the church was kind of opposing his bill?
Basically, when you look at church always believes that sex is something that cannot be discussed in church. That is their belief. They are not able to articulate the issues of sex and sexuality in churches. And this has brought about by people not having the knowledge and ways on how to relay that message about sex and sexuality. Because the moment you start relaying such kind of message to church feels that you are introducing the children into bad behavior. So there's need for them to be informed why they should allow people to go to church and educate them on sexuality issues. Because most of the time we find that our children are in church and they follow all the church doctrines, but at the end of the day, the parent is contented that the child is, after that, the child becomes pregnant and she's in church. So people wonder, how did it happen? What really went wrong? It is because our children in church don't have any information, and the leaders in church are not even aware themselves on how to relay the message of sex and sexuality to the young people in church. So they also need to be informed first, the church leaders. After that, they're able to allow, those people are able to educate this kind of topic in church. They can also be allowed to go in church and teach the young people about sex and sexuality. That is the way I think church first should be educated and know how to relay the same information to the church, and know that you are living in an era whereby these children know so much, and if they get it from church, they'll be able to follow than even getting from other people, because the church is where most of them are. That's where you find the young people.
Okay.
And if they are taught in church, then they'll be able to take the information seriously as compared from their peers who are going to give them wrong information. Yes.
Walter, do you think maybe there's need to avail resources to parents and teachers to be able to conduct sexual education in schools and at home?
Yes, I think we should have chiefs, we should have police officers in charge of gender desks going to school to educate students, pupils, and even teachers and parents on sex education, on the Sexual Offences Act, and many other legislations aimed at protecting the children. So I think that is important, because critically many people get into some of these engagements because they lack the correct information, the consequences, and how to protect themselves. I would also say that looking at the bill that Mheshimiwa initiated in the assembly, and also another similar bill, the reproductive health bill at the Senate by the Senator of Nakuru, the bills were almost similar, and I think the position of the church was that if allowed, then it would normalize underage sex, and if passed, it will open the door for children between 10 and 17 years to receive and use contraceptives against without the consent of the input of the parents or the guardians. So I think that was the concern of the church. To me, I would say, before we even go to the point of legislating this, because when we are legislating that, then we are giving a green light for young people to begin using contraceptives and all that. I would say, first we need to create awareness, but number two, the law should be very firm in terms of prosecuting any case which appears. To me, until we reach a point where all the cases which have been reported across the country and the counties have been prosecuted and people have been taken to court, we will not change anything. We are institutionalizing what I would say promiscuity from a very young age. I remember when I was in school, some of this knowledge didn't be provided to many of us. I think many of us would have made important decisions. Because again, I'm saying this, taking cognizant of the fact that many of the teenage mothers, many of them did not consent. Many were defiled by persons known to them, by relatives, by teachers. So even if we tell them to use protective protection, and yet we have not addressed the people who are preying on them, who know that these are minors, yet go ahead and defile them. Then we are not doing justice. And primarily the role of government is to protect those minors, those people who cannot protect themselves, because the Constitution says people under 18 are not mature to make mature decisions. They cannot consent. So I would say, and I would also ask Mheshimiwa and all of us, we go and begin asking hard questions in terms of addressing those and ensuring that there's prosecution for those who have already perpetrated those acts to the young people. If we do that, believe you me, we will be able to significantly reduce the instances by over 60-70%. When people know that you can do this, but you cannot escape, we will significantly reduce those instances. But for as long as we want to legislate this, then the challenge is that the border operators who have been preying on them will know that now these people have consent. They can use this. So they will use money. They will use all manner of things to entice them. So what kind of society really are we creating? I don't think it's the right kind of society we want to create.
Okay, thank you, Walter. From what I'm getting from you, the issue really is what is the government doing to secure these children? There's a comment here from Victor. At the prosecution level, collection of evidence is also a challenge, especially for defilement cases, because evidence is time sensitive. And then John Alanamu agrees, very important point, chain of custody issues must be resolved if prosecutions can succeed. And Shitemi here says, very important angle of the church. They will for a long time remain a weak link in triumphing this challenge. But Juliana says some churches are already doing it, teaching sexuality under youth programs because knowledge is power. I would like to go back to Margaret as somebody who works for a church-run organization. How can the church not remain a weak link in triumphing this challenge? Because we see COVID is here. It's not going away anytime soon. The economic challenges are also not fading away anytime soon. So how do we prevent this issue of teenage pregnancy from spilling over to an issue that you can no longer control? And how can the church help in doing that?
The church is a very important stakeholder in matters of gender-based violence, sexual and gender-based violence. But not also forgetting that the church and its leadership are the moral custodians. And I would say how we can be able to bring them on board fully is through sensitization and sharing of information and engaging them during these discussions. And like Walter has said, I concur that let us not just try to scratch the surface, but let's try and get to the root cause of the aspects of teenage pregnancy. Because this is my take now, by giving them contraceptives, I don't think we are really solving the problem. But we should ask ourselves, why are these teenagers getting pregnant in the first place? And who is making them pregnant? Who are the majority who are making the teenagers pregnant? We have a project on human rights, and one time we sought to understand, though in a different county, in Baringo County, we sought to understand why are so many girls pregnant. And sorry to say, but we discovered a lot of perpetrators were the Boda Boda guys. And we got to finding out why are they major perpetrators. And we discovered most of these children go for very long distance to go to school. And therefore, when they are offered a ride twice, they feel obliged to pay back. And they don't have money, they don't have anything to pay back. So what do? They pay back with their bodies. Yeah. In this instance, it is more than contraceptives. We need to lobby the government to bring schools near to these girls so that they don't have to walk long and fall victims of rape or defilement simply because they don't have a school nearby. My point here is, let us try and find out what is the root cause of these girls. The other thing, we might be promoting or aggravating a problem, but thinking that we are solving one. By giving them contraceptives, yes, you have prevented the teenage pregnancy, but I don't think we have prevented other diseases. They'll still go engage, and now we start seeing a surge in aspects of HIV and AIDS, those diseases. But on the point of the church, I think we need to bring them on board. discuss these issues, we need to involve all the stakeholders so that we can ensure that when a policy is or a law is being passed and being implemented, all the stakeholders have been consulted and they're in agreement, and we are moving together in the same direction.
Okay, thank you very much. Over to you, MC Njuguna. Now that that bill was withdrawn, and also Susan Keheka's bill also did not see the light of day, what do you think is the way forward as far as policy making is concerned?
Well, we are trying to come up with the issues in the bill were bad. Some of the issues were good, and therefore we are looking forward to coming up with a way whereby all individuals will be brought on board so that we can come up with a bill that will be palatable to everyone. Because we want to save every person and we want everybody to be on board, while also being cognizant that the society is dynamic and nowadays socialization is being done online. Even the small children can access some of the sites that are not good. And therefore, they are running about their sexuality and they are coming to identify themselves on the issues of their sexuality at a very early age. And therefore, it's good for the church also to understand where we are coming from and the kind of the data that the health department is providing to us so that we can be able to salvage this young generation. Therefore, we are coming up with the same bill. It is still on, and we are going to have the stakeholders meeting so that we can be able to share a lot as far as that bill is concerned.
Mm-hmm. How soon do you see this happening now that we have less than a year to the next elections?
I think in 2 weeks' time, we'll have gone back to that bill, and by December, we'll have passed that bill.
Okay. And do you think this is maybe something other counties should emulate?
Yeah, I think it's upon each and every county, because this is a challenge all over. If you go by the statistics of the children that are during the KCP and KCSE that are pregnant, I believe this is a challenge that is a problem that cut across the country, and therefore it's upon all the counties to emulate what we are doing here in Nakuru County.
Okay, thank you very much. I can see we are running short of time. Probably just give a minute to each one of you to kind of give us the concluding comments, your concluding comments on this issue of teenage pregnancy. My main question is, what is the way forward? What do you think should be done to curb this thing once and for all? Probably I'll start now with Walter.
Mine is to thank you, Cynthia, for the work that you have done, and the Africa Uncensored for this initiative. I would say that the next phase for Africa Uncensored should be to ask the government questions in terms of what has it done to ensure prosecution of the perpetrators of the defilement cases which have been reported so far. So I think that should be looked into, and all of us, I think, at our own levels, we should continue to agitate for that, because these are young people who many of them, when you listen to them in the clips, they are helpless. They don't have skills. They cannot take care of themselves, so they need protection, and therefore we need to become a voice on their behalf, and to challenge the government to take action and to protect them and to protect others from being young mothers going forward. Thank you so much.
Okay, over to you, Irene.
Okay, I'll just speak on the teenagers. The way forward for teenagers is, number one, is that parents should have frequent conversation with their teenagers. And if it's not parents, us who are like their role models or counselors or the police, so give a very accurate information to them. Let them know from the start how the changes of the body come about, so that they can also have a way to be assertive and say no to instances where they're being lured into sex. So they should be empowered from the age of 10 by knowing their sexuality and have accurate information that will be able to guide them so that they can be able to be empowered from that young age. Thank you very much for being in this panel.
Thank you. Thank you. Over to you, Margaret.
Thank you so much, Cynthia, for this discussion. Actually, I would start by saying these are the kind of discussion we should be having, candid discussions around these aspects of sexuality and gender-based violence. And the way forward, I think we should ensure that there is improved chain of custody so that we can be able to have prosecution and justice for the victims, just to serve as examples to those ones who might be thinking of engaging in aspects of sexual and gender-based violence, especially to our teens, because we have an increased surge of teenage moms and teenage pregnancy in our country at large. The other point I would want to add is we also need data, because programs and projects are based on data, and not just individual data, but data that reflects clearly how this menace has gone and how it has affected our county and our nation at large. So that even when we are coming up with projects and programs, we are coming up with evidence-based projects and programs so that we can be able to realize the results. Finally, I would also pray or urge that we have stakeholders forums where everyone is involved, so that we can be able to ensure that the interventions that we have, they are yielding results. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. We can now finish with the MCA. Guna.
Okay, thank you. Number one, I would say that the parental responsibilities must be addressed, because I realize that the parents have actually refused to take up upon their responsibility. They have left their children to be, to be in the hands of the teachers. Secondly, we have a criminal justice systems that actually is somehow porous, does not actually go to the nitty-gritty and also prosecuting those who are supposed to be prosecuted. That way, we need to address the issues of the social media, whereby we realize that our children can access everything, any data and everything that they want to access. Should also accept that there is a lot of dynamism in our society, and therefore the church while actually they are preaching to their followers, so that everything disciplinary approach that need to be engaged on, so that we can salvage our children.
Okay, thank you very much. Juliana says everyone, parents, teachers, and the church need to be sensitized in order to unite, to fight from a united front. And then we have Victor, who says overall the burden falls to the adults. There is so much education towards children who will train adults. They are the duty bearers and at the same time, the offenders. Wow. And then someone here says county governments need to work with the national government on this. What happened to our chiefs? What is the Ministry of Gender doing? And what is the Children's Department in every county doing? And then someone says we can invest in millions in training children on sexuality, but they will go back to a society that is not sensitized on safety of the same children. Juliana says she's a teacher and they empower both boys and girls, but they need parents and the community to reinforce and support the teachers. Thank you very much for everyone who was able to participate in this webinar. Indeed, it is a conversation that needs to continue. We have seen such a big challenge thrown to the church to be able to actually come up with programs that will be able so to blend in with the dynamism of the society. But you also see the biggest challenge going to the government when it comes to prosecution of perpetrators and actually sealing these loopholes in the criminal justice system. So definitely this is a conversation that needs to continue if we are going to at all see an end to teenage pregnancy. So that's it from us here. My name is Cynthia Gichiri, and also a big appreciation to the Lawyers Hub and to Africa Uncensored for making this happen. So I will go back to our host for today.